Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Latino Coalition webinar. I am your host, Danny Vargas. I am the National Director for Latino Coalition, but I am with you today in my capacity as a presenter. We'll be talking about marketing for your business. Today's webinar is a first in a three-part series where we will be talking about the types of things you need to take into account when thinking about marketing for your business. We'll go ahead and start the presentation in a moment, but I want you to make sure that you also think about watching our podcast series, which you'll be able to find on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our website. And then also make sure you stay tuned for future events, including the Latino Prosperity Summit, which will take place in October in Miami, and I'm sure you'll want to be aware of that. So with that, let's go ahead and launch our webinar today. As you may know, in addition to my role with the Latino Coalition, I'm also a business owner. I'm the owner of a company called VARCOM Solutions, which is a marketing and public relations firm. And today we'll be talking about marketing basics. A little bit about VARCOM first. VARCOM is an award-winning full-service marketing communications and strategic communications firm. We've been around in the DC area since 2004. We are a service-disabled veteran-owned and Latino-owned business. We've been able to serve commercial clients, everything from small businesses to multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations, government contractors, technology firms, as well as the federal government. And I've been very active in the community. As you will see, our exposure in the media and the community speaks for itself. We've been able to have direct access to all of the leading national media outlets, as well as print publications and more. We've also had a leading role in things like diversity, equity, inclusion, and community outreach. Here is just a subset of the major categories of services that we provide our clients, everything from marketing communications to customer community engagement, as well as other consulting services. I put this up there just so you have an understanding of the fact that the type of information that we'll be looking at today is based on real world experience, where we've been able to serve a great variety of clients, everything from corporate clients, which you can see here, we serve some fairly large companies, as well as federal government agencies, and business and community groups and nonprofit organizations. And now, for us to be able to talk about marketing, we need to understand that we really need to put marketing in its place, and that place is front and center. So let's talk a little bit first about what marketing is and what marketing is not. Marketing is the process by which individuals and groups can obtain the goods and services that they need or want from those that provide them in exchange for something of value. Usually that something of value is money, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. What marketing is not just throwing together a brochure or just telling someone to go ahead and just throw an advertising out there. There really does need to be a logical sequence of flow of thinking about what you should do. And that includes analysis and design and development and implementation and going back and making sure that it's all working for you through evaluation. So there really should be business goals and objectives defined associated with your marketing efforts. There should be measures of effectiveness that are associated with them as well, to make sure that what you are doing is not only accomplishing what you want to do, but also not wasting your time and money as well. So here are just some of the types of questions that we're going to be considering. So you see here 5 questions in this presentation. Will be focused primarily on the first 3. First one is, who am I focused on and what keeps them up at night? This is the customer piece of it. You know, we need to really understand the customers that we're going after and what their primary drivers are. You know, what are their main focus areas, their problem points, and we need to understand that fairly well. The second area is, who am I up against? And that's our competition. And we'll explore that a little bit in greater detail as well. And then lastly, what's going on around here? What's the context? What's the environment that I'm looking at? In the subsequent webinar in this series, we'll be talking about, you know, what makes me special, unique, different, what makes me as a company stand out. And then finally, hey, did you notice me? That's about how we go about communicating with the outside world. We'll explore those in the future webinars, but for right now, what we will do is talk about the importance of doing market research and analysis. It really is, and you'll see the definition here. I don't want to have to read it for you, but it really is about analysis. It's really about bringing together the intelligence that you need to be able to understand what the environment is around you, where you fit in that landscape, and where your customers are in real time. So this is a process that should take place initially, but it should be also revisited from time to time. One of the areas there where we can do research is through what's called secondary research, which means we take advantage of available data through primarily external sources, but it can be internal sources as well. So external sources could be government databases, there's open source, there's newspapers, there's universities that do research and publish that research, which you can either access for free or buy in some cases. There are also internal resources for secondary sources of data, and that's your registration in your databases and maybe your customer information that you've been able to gather through your customer relationship management system. In some cases, these can be inexpensive and available, but unfortunately, they can also be outdated and not specific enough to the specific information that you're looking to collect, which is why in that case, we turn to what we call primary research. Primary research is what we collect for the first time. It's specifically looking to answer the questions that we specifically want to be able to find out about. And this can be both quantitative, in other words, numbers, which we can gather through surveys and observations and so forth. And that's really useful, but it can also be qualitative. So that's subjective information that we can get primarily through interviews with targeted subjects. It can be customers or executives. It can be focus groups that we bring together in a room and understand what reactions individuals have to a particular product or a particular set of messaging. Or we can do observations of individuals and just look at what their reactions might be. So that's the qualitative approach. It's really is important to make sure that primary research is conducted because of its accuracy and its specificity and how timely it can be to be able to answer the questions that you specifically want to be able to learn about in your marketing approach. The only downside is that it can be a bit more expensive than secondary research. So all of these things have to be taken into account. And in most cases, you can either do this type of research either in-house or outsource to a reliable marketing company like my company, for example, where we can help you with that kind of information. But it really is super useful information. Now, as we continue further in the discussion about marketing as a process, you will hear a lot of times people talk about the 4 Ps of marketing. That's product, price, promotion, and place. Place being the distribution mechanism, how it's sold. But usually, instead of just the 4 Ps, I like to talk about the 4 Cs. So the 4 Cs, as we looked at earlier, is really about the customer. It's about your competition. It's about the context or the climate in which you're operating. Then finally, it's about you as a company. So all of these types of dynamics are the types of things that we really should take into account when considering our strategic marketing approach. So why is this analysis important? Because the 2 examples that I have here, one is brand adoption. In other words, you're rolling out your company, you're trying to sell into a new market and so forth. So you typically go through the process, what in marketing is called AIDA. So awareness, interest, desire, and adoption. You'll see evaluation in there between desire and adoption, because in some cases, customers may want a trial period, for example. But it's that AIDA process, that spectrum that we want to be able to get to, where you've got a potential client that may not know about you, but you want to build awareness, and you want to get them from just knowing about you to being interested in you and wanting your services, and eventually signing a contract to get your services, right? So that's brand adoption. The other area that you see here below is called the product life cycle. So when you're launching a new product into the marketplace, you have the introduction of that product. That product will grow over time within the marketplace. Ultimately, it will begin to mature, and then finally, there's usually a bit of a decline in that product as well. So that's a normal process, both for brand adoption as well as for a product life cycle. But you will see this red lightning bolt here that I've put in here. That's what I call the chasm of doom. because unless you're doing the right kind of research on the customers and the competition and the environment and so forth, you can launch your product, you can introduce your brand, but if you haven't done that research, that's where it will fall off. So you might be able to bring a new product into the marketplace, but if you've not done the research properly, it'll drop off. You may be able to start to launch your brand into a particular market, but if you haven't done your research, it will drop off right after awareness. So that chasm of doom that you see here, the way to avoid that is by doing the right kind of research up front. So as we talk about the customer in that first C, that really is about what I call segmentation and targeting. So market segmentation is a process where we take a market and we divide it into chunks, into subsets of customers where they might have similar needs and characteristics. The targeting piece is where you then take those chunks and you identify which ones are most attractive of those various segments, which ones you really think you should be going after. So you might have an opportunity to divide the marketplace into 6 or 8 specific subsections, but of those, you may only want to target 2 or 3, right? So that's the process of segmentation and targeting. So what are the steps in terms of market segmentation? So the first step is to identify those homogeneous or similar segments that differ from other segments. So each segment is going to look similar within itself and different from the other segments, if that makes sense. The criteria that you use will be definable based on what is most important. It can be the size, and it can be the potential market, it could be demographics, it could be geography. So whatever it is that makes the most sense, it will dictate how you segment that marketplace. And you'll have an idea of who they are, where they are, what they buy, how they behave. You know, all of that information will be conducted within that market segmentation process. So what it also allows you to do is within that segmentation process, you can begin to target those customers. You'll understand what their key drivers are, what their main priorities are. You'll understand what keeps them up at night, what causes headaches, what's important to them, what are their pain points. Those are the types of things that are really important in making sure that as you get later on in the process where you talk about yourself, where you're able to talk to those particular concerns with what you offer as a company. Always begin by looking at the world from their perspective. It's that you approach. I'm always, me as a customer, I'm always thinking about you, the client, and what your needs are. So in other words, what the clients are going to be telling you is, don't tell me how wonderful you are. Tell me how you can help me, how you can solve my problem, how you can address my issues. You also have an opportunity to understand what their unfulfilled needs are, what causes them uncertainty and fear and doubt, and be able to capitalize on that to make sure that what you're offering them will ease their mind, will give them a sense of security. And you always want to be able to make sure that you can find ways to make sure that help your customer become a hero. And you can do that through clearly articulating what the benefits of your product and company are to them. So now begins the process. Now that we've divided up the segments and we understand them individually, this is the process where we begin to target the segments that are most attractive. So this is typically the process that you go through. You choose a criteria, you weigh the attractiveness in the marketplace and your competitive position. You assess the current position of each potential target market on these factors, and then you project the future position of each market based on the environment, customer, and the competitive landscape that you are facing, and you evaluate the implications of future changes in the marketplace. All of this is something that you should take into account as you begin to say, you know, of these segments that I've identified, these are the ones that are most attractive to me, and these are the ones that I'm going to target. Because as you look at the matrix of this targeting approach, you'll see here that the x-axis is your competitive position. You know, are you strong in that marketplace? Are you kind of weak? Are you somewhere in the middle? The y-axis is how attractive they are from a market analysis perspective. Is this particular market segment very attractive, in other words, high, or are they not very attractive, in other words, low, or they're somewhere in the middle? Ultimately, where you want to be is in that upper right-hand quadrant, where you are both strong in the marketplace and the particular segment is highly attractive. So that's the sweet spot. The other two, where you're less strong, but it's still a highly attractive segment of the marketplace, is also something that you might want to focus on, as well as those areas where you're strong, but maybe that particular market segment may not be as attractive, but it's still worth going after. And as you begin to fill in these boxes, you'll see what I'm talking about. So that strong position and highly attractive quadrant in the top right, that's where you would want to make sure that you protect your position. You invest to grow as much as you possibly can, continue to manage that growth, right? In other words, that digestible rate. So grow at a rate that you're able to continue to manage and not grow so fast that it breaks your company. But you also want to concentrate on maintaining your strong position in the marketplace. And then you also see here that where maybe you're less strong, but it's still a highly attractive segment. That's where you can invest to build and move them from that position over to the strong position, and build on your strengths and reinforce your vulnerable areas or you're weak. And then finally, in that area where you're strong, but maybe that segment is not as attractive, that's where you can build selectively. You can emphasize profitability with particular customers within that segment, and build the ability to stave off competition. So I hope that makes sense in terms of sort of that targeting approach. We're going to watch a video now, and I'm going to want you to think about who this company is targeting in their ad, and what the key drivers are of the customers that they're targeting. So let's take a quick look at this ad and let's give it some thought.
Looking forward to the switch? GAAP to IFRS.
Sure. Like a root canal. The revenue recognition piece is going to be a bear.
How many accounting firms really have global resources?
Right.
Plus, it's complicated, so we're going with BDO.
BDO.
People who know BDO.
So BDO was the company here, and clearly they're targeting professionals in the accounting industry, the finance industry. They are sophisticated. They know the jargon. They know the key buzzwords in their industry. They also know that they're looking to outsource to a highly professional company that knows what they're doing, and that's why BDO, both in this one ad, they did the segmentation and targeting, and they also positioned themselves as the best option for them. So they were able to say, you know, that BDO is better than their competition because they know what they're doing, right? So this is, I thought, was a very effective ad that showed exactly who they were targeting and exactly why BDO was the best option for them. So this is a good example of that segmentation and targeting. So now, as we talk about that competition piece, we also have to understand that nothing occurs in a vacuum, right? There's always going to be competition. So the important part of this process is to understand where you as a company fit within that landscape of competitors. You know, it's important to understand that every company out there that's one of your competitors has their own process where they're sizing up the competition. So they're looking at you as well. So you also want to figure out what's working for them. So if they're doing well in the marketplace, there's no reason why we can't learn from your competition and understand what approaches they've been able to use to make them successful. So let's look, for example, in the automobile industry. Here are a number of brands. All of them are successful. All of them are doing well, but they have different qualities that they approach in the marketplace. So again, on the x-axis, you've got more conservative brands on the left and more sporty brands on the right. On the y-axis, you've got the more affordable brands on the lower quadrant, the more expensive and classy brands in the top. So it's all about understanding who fits where in that landscape and what the perception is within that collection of competitors. And then again, I'm a small business. Many of you are small businesses, and this is just a funny little video about what it feels like to be a small business in the marketplace.
All right, you guys, you know this is for fun, so take it easy and give them a good show.
Listen, after the match, how about if we get a Polaroid together, okay?
You're in trouble, man. I'm gonna break him in half like this.
Seems like lately everybody wants to beat me up.
Seems like everybody wants to beat me up. That's exactly what it feels like to be a small business. You've got these large competitors out there, and you're out there just trying to grow your business and do good business. It's a struggle, but as we saw, even in those Rocky movies, even the smaller guys can still come out on top sometimes. So that was just a funny little video for us to be able to watch. Okay, now finally, we're going to talk about context. So we've talked about the customer, we've talked about the competition. Now we're going to talk about the context or the climate or the environment that we see ourselves working in. Usually what I suggest is that we do at least two types of analysis. One is called a SWOT analysis. Another one is called a PEST analysis. And the SWOT analysis typically is about where you fit in the competitive landscape in the marketplace, and it talks about your strengths and your weaknesses and your opportunities and your threats. And usually you can have some kind of a matrix like this on the right where you're able to go through each one of those and list them out. The really important part here is to be as honest and truthful as possible. That's why it's important to get a fresh pair of eyes from the outside to be able to say, where are you really strong? Not where you think you're strong, but where you're really strong. And then have an honest conversation about where you might be weak in the marketplace. And then also have a fresh set of eyes to talk about what the opportunities might be out there that you maybe haven't noticed before, and also be honest about the conversation about where those threats are. So that's an important exercise that every company should go through in terms of examining the context that they're operating in. And then the second category is what I call the PEST analysis. That's a situational awareness. And these will change over time as well. But this is for the political environment, the economic situation, the social trends that might be happening in society, as well as the technological advances that are happening in the marketplace that would be impacting either ourselves or competitors or our customers in the marketplace. So this type of analysis really should be conducted probably at least on an annualized basis. So this really is helpful to be able to sort of level set where you are vis-a-vis the competition and the customers in the marketplace. I'm going to wrap this up here because you've had a lot of information to digest. We will be able to share the content of these presentations for you separately. So please think about questions that you might have, send them in to us, and we'll address them in a future video. If you want to contact me, here's my email address as well as my phone number. And then actually, I'm going to change that number. The number is wrong. It's 571-276-3109. Look forward to hearing from you. And thanks again. And stay tuned for future webinars and podcasts from Latino Coalition. Have a great day.